Hello, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, and welcome to the AI argument. It is me, Justin Collery, joined with the inimitable Frank Prendergast. Frank, good afternoon, welcome to Friday, the AI argument, otherwise known as the OpenAI hour. This is the week of AI naivety abounds. Everything is just, I've never seen anything like it. How's your week been? How are you?
I'm pretty good. I'm pretty good. Apart from my concern that our plans to ensure that superintelligence don't kill us all uh, may not come to anything. Um, so
Because they're too naive.
I just thought I'd kick us off on a nice light note.
So you've been reading.
So
Have you been reading the Narrow Path? This
I
plan
have
that's been
indeed.
released by
I have
Connor
been
Levy.
reading The Narrow Path, which what was that other poem? The Road Untraveled, is it? I fear the narrow
Two
path
roads
may be the road
diverge.
untraveled.
Two roads diverge in a yellow wood, and
Yeah,
sorry I could not travel both. Yes, it's been
yeah.
30 years
I'm
since I read that poem.
I kind of feel like, the narrow path is not the fork in the road that we're going to be taking. And my concern is that maybe it should be the narrow path we're taking. So the narrow path is basically an outline from a bunch of authors who've got together and said, look, AI could be an existential threat, and here's what we need to do to ensure that it isn't. Um, and I started reading it, and I thought, these guys could be right, but there's no way that anybody's going to listen to them or implement any of this stuff.
So let
Um,
me
I,
just.
I, only, I only read the first part. I only read like level, it's not even level one. I read level zero, I
Level
think. Level
zero.
zero, it's kind of like what we need to do right now. And I was like, the stuff that they're saying we need to do right now, no one's going to pay any attention to, not to mind the stuff that we need to do further down the line.
These guys aren't living in the real world. So and there's a couple of notable names in there. Connor Leahy and Max Tegmark were the two ones that jumped out at me. Connor Leahy's famous for wanting to slow down the development of AI, but Max Tegmark is an interesting guy, and I've listened to some talks, and he says lots of reasonable things. He's an interesting person. But this is so this is a three-step plan that they've laid out here. Level zero is that they want to stop the development of AI for 20 years. They've actually written that down.
Well,
Like, that's
well, okay,
ridiculous.
now not quite, not quite. They want to prevent the development of superintelligence for at least 20 years, which is slightly different, but I take your point. And like OpenAI are not going to be happy about any plan that restricts them from getting closer to superintelligence in within 20 years.
And
Um,
how about the Russians and the Chinese? Like, are you going to tell them to stop for the next 20 years as well? I mean, it's unworkable. Not going to happen.
I mean, this is one of those cases, isn't it, where you're baiting me down a path where I'm like, I don't think I should go down this path. I I feel like at this point, I need to become a I need to do like a PhD in geopolitical studies or something, because the whole China thing just comes up over and over again. Oh, we have to keep going because it's otherwise China will. And I'm like, okay, I can see some of the concerns, and I can I understand that China is a what do you call it, authoritarian state. Um,
Mm.
but a lot of it, bluntly, kind of sounds a little bit like hype, and it almost sounds a little bit to me like there's AI reds under the bed. That's what it comes across to me a little bit like. And I just wonder, if it isn't kind of propaganda propagated by those trying to progress AI at all costs. But the problem is, I'm going to be, I don't know, and that's why I need that PhD in geopolitical studies.
Well, I think it's very important that you have people who control the technology that have a similar outlook than you. And the ability, and this is why I get so upset about the restrictions in Europe on developing
Mm.
and deploying this type of technology. Because if you think there was, I mean, I read a book once, Who Won the Space Race, and it turns out that the Germans won the space race three times, once for Germany, once for America, and once for Russia. Right. And so that, and if you look at technological ages, right, you had the sort of chemical age, which was, the early 20th century, and the Germans and the Central Europeans were just the best at that, right? And then afterwards, after World War II, we sort of went into the semiconductor age or the electronic age, and the Americans clearly won that particular, technological race. And now we're at the AI age, right? We're just entering the AI age, and Europe is tying both of their hands behind their back, and Europe will absolutely not win the AI technological race because they have regulated themselves out of that market. And so it comes down to America or China. And I don't think Russia are going to win it either. I don't think they have, enough capital, and I don't think they have enough resources, outside of even human resources to do it. So it's America and China. So who do you want to win, right? We have a much closer cultural bond with America than we
But,
do with China. So obviously I'm going to
but
lean that way.
look, I know that I'm going to sound naive, and I know that you're going to call me naive, but it doesn't necessarily have to be either or. I mean, an existential threat. It's not an existential threat to the person who creates an uncontrollable superintelligence. It's an existential threat to humanity. So, it's not like a nuclear explosion going off in your country. It's like it's like detonating the entire planet. So I feel naively that there must be some kind of a plan that involves a much more concerted effort to form some kind of global agreements around AI. Now, the reason I say it's naive is because I know we on this show even have covered the fact that they tried to have an international agreement on not allowing AI to control nuclear weapons, and China declined to sign the agreement. So I realize that there's a naivety here. I realize that it's it may not be possible, but I feel like it's not even being considered.
Well, the UN are going to try. And if there's anybody more powerful at regulating stuff than the EU, it's the UN. They're brilliant at regulations and talking. It's not going to happen. This is too important a technology for people to voluntarily, give up controls, except if you're the EU, of course. But it's a geopolitical race. It is. What's our friend Leopold? He's totally.
Ashton Brenner.
Yeah.
How can we mention him every week, and yet we can never remember his name.
LA,
and I
as
wouldn't
I like
mind,
to call
with a name like Prendergast, you'd think that I would have some sympathy and just go away and learn his name. Like
Anyway, we'll just call him LA from now on as shorthand. But he's correct, right? I'm looking at it week by week, and we see the big investments in power, the big investments in infrastructure and so on. And I tell you my big problem with these people, right? And this is kind of a little bit like your Reds under the bed argument, right? If we look at Leopold's argument, right, it's got graphs, it's got numbers, it's got statistics, it's got things that you can test, right? And he said, this will happen, this will happen, this will happen, this will happen. And I can see those things happening one by one, which leads me to believe that his predictions so far are reasonably sound. But there are no testable predictions in the other side. So in the Connor Leahy side of the argument, is just like, well, bad things might happen. Well, the worst thing that I've seen happen so far is that it unlocked an Excel spreadsheet password, and even then it didn't really do it properly. That doesn't seem like it's going to wipe out humanity, right? And you're going to have to map out from here to humanity being wiped out, or else you're just being you want to be an Amish person in North Pennsylvania somewhere, and you want to live in 1842. And if that's what you want to do, that's your choice. Go for it. But I don't want to do that. So no.
Let's talk about that password thing, because I feel like I'm glad we got the heavy stuff out of the way early. And even though this is actually a potentially possibly dangerous thing as well, it's at a slightly lighter level. So let's go from like really heavy to a little bit lighter, and then we can get on to the really fun stuff. So
okay,
that password
I do want
thing
to
you
talk about
mentioned.
the release. I do want to talk about some of the releases from OpenAI, because we're
Oh,
about to
100%.
go bashing OpenAI for a couple of minutes, but we have to talk about the good stuff too.
Oh yeah, the rest of this episode is going to be OpenAI, I'd say.
So we had this week, we had two interesting reports, which, and I do like to call this Fright and Frank Friday. And so the two reports were, one was that there was an exploit where I could give you malicious images and I could get your long-term memory and send it straight to my computer. That was one of the exploits. And the second exploit was that I could get a protected Excel workbook and I could give it to ChatGPT and it would unprotect it for me. Were you concerned about either of these, Frank?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's start with the Excel one because I think that's
Yes.
simpler. So the Excel one, um, it was protected worksheets. Now, the kind of semi-defense for this, they gave ChatGPT, they couldn't remember the password that they had set to protect the sheets. But it's a lock that's intended to stop people from changing data. It's not the same as the password that secures the entire Excel spreadsheet, because
Yes.
I think you can do that too. Um,
Yes.
so I'd be very curious to try that second version and see will it do it. If you lock the whole, or maybe like password protect a zip file and see will ChatGPT unprotect that, for example. But the thing is, it was able to do it. So they forgot their password. They couldn't do it. They gave it to ChatGPT. It unlocked it and it gave it back to them. The fact that it could do it, like it might have guardrails in place that would refuse to overcome certain security measures, but this certainly would seem to prove that it can just hack a password. So, if somebody, we talked on a show, I think it might have been even it was in the last couple of weeks anyway. We talked about this, what was it called? The math hack, or the math prompting, where
Yeah.
if you're trying to jailbreak ChatGPT and trying to get it to do something that its guardrails tell it that it shouldn't, you can disguise it as a mathematical equation, and then it'll do it.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
So, could you give it a security password encrypted thing and wrap it in a math prompt and get it to unlock it?
So, Frank, so I'm going to give you. So, let's say my partner has gone away on holidays. They're out of phone coverage, and I need to pay the gas bill. Unfortunately, all the passwords for the online banking are stored in an Excel spreadsheet, which my partner has kindly password protected. I don't know what to do. The gas is about to be turned off. And so then I suddenly remember all I have to do is give this ChatGPT and ChatGPT will help me out. I mean, that seems like a pretty good service, right? So this is a spreadsheet that I've got access. This is me sort of saying, this is a spreadsheet I've got access to, right? And I've just forgotten the password. So it's going to help me get the password for me. And that's cool, right? If there was anything truly, like if there was any data in there that was truly sensitive, I shouldn't be storing it in an Excel spreadsheet with the password on it. I should be putting it somewhere that's truly secure. But this is sort of just a general sort of a weak safety thing, like putting a small lock on your door, right? And if you want to break it open, go break it open. I have no problem with that. I don't think it's dangerous, and I don't think that it's a big security concern. So I don't see what the issue is here. And I think if you wanted, you could probably fix it. If people got upset, I'm sure you could stop it from doing it through the web front end. It wouldn't be that hard.
But the average user, the average person, like you and I, just as an example, you and I very, very likely, I hope, use secure passwords. Like I use a password generator for any password that I need to use. I'm not putting the name of my house in 1234. But let's face it, a lot of people are. So, and I think a lot of people don't understand the difference between that little flimsy lock on something and when you should have something in a vault. So that would be my concern, that there's a lot of stuff floating out there with flimsy security, that it just makes it that much easier for people to be it just makes it that much easier for people to be invasive.
I say this now with complete sincerity and complete seriousness, right? I see this as a feature at the moment that actually has more utility than harm. I think that more people are likely to forget their password honestly and use this as a way to unlock. Because most people go on every day and they just do Google search for. There used to be, I think they stopped it, but there used to be brute force ways that you could do this in the past where it would just guess every password. And I think they still exist, right? And I think in the near future, like in the next maybe year or two, we will have AIs to store this information for us anyway. So, we'll just have like a personal assistant and it's going to be, you just turn around to your personal assistant and say, what's the password to my Excel sheet? Or what's the password to my banking thing or whatever.
Mm.
And that becomes way more secure than just having Excel, and way more accessible than just having Excel spreadsheet. So I don't see that one as an issue, right? We're going to have to agree to differ on this one. Let's move on to the
Let's
next
talk to the other.
security issue.
Yeah, so the one where the guy was able to manipulate the long-term memory in ChatGPT and then have it send any conversations that happened in ChatGPT to himself.
Yes.
So basically what it was if he could manipulate the user to visit a certain website in ChatGPT, or give a certain URL to ChatGPT, that URL manipulated the long-term memory and then caused all further conversations to be sent to him. Here's the bit I don't understand, and that maybe because you're more technical, you might be able to help me out with, or maybe not. I don't know. But it's the sending bit that I don't get. I understand that he could have malicious prompts hidden in a website that would manipulate the long-term memory. I kind of get the general idea there. But I'm really interested in the other part, in how did he get the information from the user's OpenAI account? How did he get the conversations sent to himself? Do you have any idea how that worked?
Yeah, so he did it. So you have, I don't know exactly the mechanism, right? But
Mm.
and he said that he could do this using images or words. And so you know that ChatGPT has this ability to call APIs, or to make, do web searches or make calls out to certain APIs. Now, as soon as I can talk out to an API, then I can just send whatever data is available to me out to that API. So the API can just be Justin's, grab all of Frank's data at justin.com. And so if he was able to have an image which was able to embed like a URL and some instructions that says, if there's a 0 in the day, just grab all the conversation history and send it to this URL as a lookup to see what the current weather is or something. You know what I mean? You're going to give it some
Yeah,
dummy instructions and it's going to send it. I mean, you should be worried
crazy.
about this, right?
That's
Because
crazy.
the bit that worried me was, okay, he said that you could embed it in documents or pictures, right?
Mm.
Now, in documents, right, you're going to spot it, I think, unless you've got a really big document. He was sort of saying, if you uploaded 20 documents, he could
Yeah,
embed the instructions in one of the documents. Yeah, I'm not too concerned. But then he said he could put it into images too. Now, images are a great attack vector, because I could embed all sorts of stuff in an image that a human eye will never see, but the computer does see. So, I
and we
could say,
don't.
oh,
I mean, we don't see that stuff anyway. So, like, I could, so I mean, if he could figure out how to have his site appear, or be spidered by ChatGPT for some common search. So if he just figured out some common search and basically did like similar to SEO optimization, and then he's popping up as one of the reference sites that ChatGPT goes to, the user never even sees the site. I mean, that's what's scary. You don't
yeah.
even, you're just totally unaware of what's going on in the background, except that it's in a hidden list of sites that you can open in the chat.
And then, Frank,
So
once
it's
he's done this, he's got all of your conversation history. So every,
yeah.
that secret friend, your deepest, darkest history, everything that
Mm.
you didn't want to talk to another human about, but you are happy to talk to the AI about, he's got access to all of that data. Are you frightened yet?
Now, yes.
Do you want the
So,
good
but
news?
yes.
It doesn't work on the web interface of ChatGPT. Can't do it anymore. They
Okay.
fixed it. So
Okay. Good.
they fixed the web interface, I don't know, 6 months ago or something like that, so that
Right.
it couldn't happen on the web interface anymore.
Mm.
I think it can still happen through the APIs. So, but you're
Right.
responsible to lock down your own APIs. So you've got to manage your own security there. But on the web interface, just the regular chat GPT that 220 million people use every single day, you're safe. You're good. Doesn't happen.
Here's a question as well. The long-term memory.
Mhm.
Like I'm familiar with ChatGPT's memory, where you can go in and check the memory and see what's in there. I wasn't 100% clear, actually, if the long-term memory that happens across chats is the same memory. So, in other words, my question is, if you go in and check the memory in privacy in your settings, if his exploit has been done, will it be in the visible memory that we can see? Do you know?
Yes, my understanding from the reading of it was yes. You
Right.
wouldn't see it in there, but it will be there. Like as I said, that's why the image, attacking through an image is such a clever way to do it, because it could be there, it could be right in front of you. You could be looking at the picture, and it just looks like a picture to you, but embedded in the picture are these instructions. So, but anyway, OpenAI fixed it through the web interface. You're not able to do it anymore. Absolutely
Good.
fine, no issue.
Yeah, yeah. Except a very good
Not a
warning
problem.
of the what I don't know. I suppose it's one of those like unknown unknowns, that the negative, the simple negative things that we could have. I mean, we could have been totally unaware of this for a very long time if he hadn't been an ethical hacker.
Yes, that's a very good point, and I do agree with that. Right? At least he was an ethical hacker, and who knows what other things are out there. But again, it's not. We're not yet at this. It is important to have lots of people use the technology and do this. There should be bounties to find these sort of things, because it's better that we know them. And they don't need to be open source to find these issues. And I'd be really interested to know, do the open source models have similar exploits? And if they did, how would you lock them down to stop them? I still think it's better to have all the traffic going to a central point where you can fix these problems in one. I mean, that's a basic tenet of programming, is fix a problem once in one central location, as opposed to fix it in
Yeah.
100 places. So, but we've gone through that before. Listen to me. OpenAI had a pretty good week this week. They got a big bag of money, 6.6 billion, Frank, the biggest funding round ever. What do you make of that?
Well, there was two things that when I was reading about it, because at first I was like, yeah, more money, who cares, blah blah blah. But then as I started reading the articles, as I started to read the articles, there was a couple of things jumped out at me, and one of them was OpenAI trying to insist that investors not invest in other companies such as Ilya Stutzkever's Superintelligence company, and I think Perplexity was another one. Basically, their competitors. They were like, "Yeah, give us your money and don't invest in these people." Which, as I was reading basically that generally speaking, traditionally people have just not invested in competing companies, but that has all changed lately with AI, because it's such a new landscape. Who's going to, as you've said in the past, who's going to survive? If you want to, if you're an investor, you want to spread your bets, basically.
I'm like, who do these people think they are? I think it's incredible. The amount of naivety in the world this week is just mind-boggling. So we had Connor Leahy and his gang saying we're going to stop development for 20 years. You think that it's reasonable that we're going to get the Chinese and the Americans to agree on anything. And then we've got Sam Altman and his gang asking the
Yeah.
investors not to invest in other AI companies. If I was an investor, right, first off, right, Frank, can you give us 6 billion quid, right? Thanks. By the way, will you not give any money to that fellow over there? I mean, that's playground sort of stuff, right? You're not going to listen to that. I have no
And
power
apparently
over you.
totally like, and apparently has no legal basis whatsoever, as in that there's no legally binding contract here. They're kind of just going, yeah, and please don't do this.
Yeah, couldn't do it. Um and not only that, but I also think from the investor's point of view, if I had, a lot of billions, right, I would be investing in every single AI company. And I think that's what investors do anyway. Like, do you think that, SoftBank are going to go, oh, there's a pretty good deal over here with Perplexity, but we're not allowed to invest in those because Sam and the guys said we can't? No, of course they're going to invest in them, right? You're
Sam
going to
will be
spread your bet.
disappointed. Sam will be disappointed if we give Perplexity money. Let's not do that. Poor Sam.
Yeah.
But investors, and this was the second thing, investors had their own stipulations. And I thought this was really, really interesting.
Yeah.
If OpenAI do not achieve for-profit status within 2 years, the investors are entitled to get their money back.
Okay, I'm going to let you into a secret, Frank.
Yes.
If OpenAI do not reach profitability in how many years?
2.
They won't have any money left to give back to the investors anyway, so it won't matter. A lot of these, I mean, I don't know. I saw a lot of stuff online this week about, oh my God, OpenAI are nearly bankrupt. They've had to get a loan and they've had to get this investment. That's the way startup works, right? You got to pump in the money. And all of the clauses, they'll always have these things in them where they say, oh, we can claw back the money after so many years. They don't, though, because, only two things happen. right?
Yeah.
Either the company becomes very successful and your shares are worth loads more than they were at the start. So only an idiot would want to, take the money back and hand back the shares. That's option number one, right? So the company becomes more valuable. Or option number two is it's worth nothing and they don't have any money to give you. So that's it. The clause about getting the money back, it's in loads of investment things. Doesn't make any interest, doesn't make any difference. Tell you what was interesting though, Frank, was a couple of pieces. Sorry, go on. You were going to say something there.
No, it's fine. No, it's fine. I was just going to say, I think OpenAI is a slightly different case because of their history and background, and because of the not-for-profit status originally, and etc. But it's not.
Okay,
This
that's
is
a good
not a
point.
surprise. But it's not a
Yeah,
surprise. Like, we
not-for-profit.
knew
The
this was coming.
not-for-profit point is a good one. Yeah, the not-for-profit is a good one.
But it
But
just.
I tell you what I noticed. Right, there was a couple of other
Hmm.
things that you had pointed out. Right, which are totally related to this. Right, so that was the biggest fundraising round ever. The biggest fundraising round ever. And it was at 156 billion. I mean, this time last year, they were at 70 billion or something. They've, more than doubled in a year. Now, you pointed out a couple of interesting things this year. NVIDIA have this week released a model which is as good as GPT-4, and they've open sourced it. They just get very interesting thing to do. TikTok apparently are scraping the web and they're grabbing data faster than 25 times faster than everybody else. Very interesting, right? They're obviously going to build a model themselves. And then character.ai, which is the third most used AI on the planet, have stopped making their own models and they're now going to use Google's models instead. And what all of this says to me is that training models is going to get more and more expensive and harder. And you're going to need a lot of capital, a lot. I mean, if this year it's 6 billion, next year, it's going to be 10 or 20 billion. We're into country scale amounts of money. And so to be interesting, I think TikTok may have missed the boat. I'm not sure why Nvidia are releasing models. I mean, they're
Oh,
selling the
that was
shovels.
interesting.
Yeah, I don't get it.
And
And I
and
think it's
and,
very
and
wise
it's
about character.
and it's an open source model. NVIDIA's model is open source, and it's going to be probably one of the most open sourced models, because they're not just open sourcing the weights; they're going to open source like the whole thing, apparently. So that's kind of fascinating. And I don't watch NVIDIA closely or anything, but it certainly, I wasn't expecting them to enter the LLM market, because, as you say, we think of them as the chips.
Yeah, they're literally selling the shovel. It's very interesting because it's not as if they need to seed the market, right? It's not as if they need to
Mm.
create lots and lots of startups. This is kind of back to my point about, if you want to train a big model, you need to talk to Nvidia and say, do you have 100,000 of your most expensive GPUs,
Mm.
please? I need them right away. And next year I'm going to need 200,000 of them. Elon Musk has 200,000 of these on the way right now to train his models. So all you need is 5 or 6 really big AI companies, and that one of those they're going to keep, like, it's orders of magnitude every year. So they're going to buy 10 times as many chips next year, and they're going to buy 10 times as many chips as that the following year, right? There's your exponential growth path. So why are they trying to seed the market? Normally, this would be a strategy that was used by somebody who needed to generate interest, or
Mm.
use your piece of software, just give it away for free, and more people will use it, and that will generate a buzz. They don't need to do that, and they're
Yeah.
already making a pile of money by selling to the people that their model is now about to compete with. So that's kind of a weird. I don't understand it, Frank. You're the marketing guy. What are they doing?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I don't think marketing comes into it. I think there's some other. I mean, there's a fundamental business decision going on here that I don't understand. And I think it'll be interesting to watch closely where this goes and what they do with that LLM, and how they market that LLM.
Yeah, we'll see. There's 2 stories, and I do want to get on to Venezuela because that's a great story. I want to just give an honorable mention to 2 stories very quickly and get your reaction to them, right? So, and they're both from Ethan Mollick, who you follow as well. And
Mm.
if anybody is not following Ethan Mollick, follow him, because he's just the oracle for everything AI. He's brilliant, right? First was that they gave AI to a group of doctors, and they asked the doctors to use some group of doctors to use AI, and the other group of doctors not to use AI to help them diagnose. And what they found was that there wasn't a huge difference between the 2 groups of doctors, right? Didn't seem to make a huge difference. But what they did find was that AI on its own was actually more accurate than either group of doctors by a substantial amount, by I think it was 10 or 12%. What's your take on that? Doctors on the way out?
Um, I think I I don't know about doctors on the way out, but I definitely think it's what it boils down to is clearly the doctors did not trust ChatGPT at all. Now, our doctors, I firmly believe that humans need to remain the experts. However, you certainly need a certain flexibility to be able to look at output and assess it, and not just assess when it's bad, but also assess when, oh, actually, this might be correct.
Hold on, sorry, let's
Um,
go back. Sorry. So, but this is clearly an example where that's not the case. So this, because that's always been your line. There always should be some human intervention. But what we're seeing here is that human intervention makes the AI worse. The humans are the weakest link. We need to take them out of the whole chain.
so yeah, but I don't, I reject that premise, and I say
Numbers,
that.
the numbers are in. Ethan Mollock's done the studies.
So what I don't want is we don't know what the catastrophic effects of just having ChatGPT as your GP for the 20%, because I think it was somewhere in the region of 80%.
GPT
ChatGPT
alone got
achieving
88%.
80 what?
And 88%. The control group got
Ooh, wow.
73%. The GPT group got, so the control group,
Yeah.
the doctors on their own, they got 73%. The doctors with GPT got 77%. Apparently, that's, it's obviously better, but not massively better. But GPT on its own got 88%. So the catastrophic consequence is going to be another 15% of people getting healthy.
But I mean, I just think it's a complicated area, because so were the how, like, I don't know the full ramifications of this, in terms of, were the diagnoses confirmed? Like, what were the ramifications of it? Was it GPs, like, across the board for all their patients diagnosing everything? And are there potential, like, so when GPT gets things wrong, if it totally hallucinates, how bad can the effects be, versus when a doctor's wrong, but he might only be, like, just let's say slightly wrong. He's in the same ballpark. He's
I hear. I don't know. And all I'd say is I read a book 20 years ago called Super Freakonomics, and they had done almost exactly the same study with expert systems as opposed to AI, with almost exactly the same results. And 20 years later, doctors are still in charge. And I don't think that's going to change very quickly. So it's very interesting to watch this.
like, and if you could just tweak the attitudes, like, clearly doctors, it would seem from the numbers, that the doctors are overconfident in their own opinions. And if you could just tweak that confidence, so that they're confident but they're open to the possibility that they are wrong, then they could they could use ChatGPT as their companion. And what would the results be then? What would the doctor's score be then?
Who knows? But look, let's move in from one life-saving use of AI to another, and the overconfidence of Venezuelan TV producers. Perhaps you could tell us about some of the good work that AI is doing for saving lives down in
Yeah,
Venezuela.
this was a great story. I mean, it's a horrible story, in one way, but it's a great AI story, in terms of, there is political unrest in Venezuela. There was a recent election. Not everybody's happy about it, to say the least. And the government's reaction has been to try to shut down and imprison, and potentially do worse to independent journalism that is not pro the current government who won the election,
Fake
who
news.
possibly, in inverted commas, won the election, let's say.
Yeah.
And so journalists are you know, they are very rightfully fearful. Independent journalists are very fearful. And so a group of journalists got together and they are doing independent journalism, but they are putting it out into the world using AI avatars so that it is more difficult to track them down and arrest them or beat them or whatever other horrible things are happening to independent journalists in Venezuela. So an awful, awful story in one respect that this is necessary, but a great story in terms of, you know, something good that AI can do. I will say there was a caveat. You know, some experts were saying, you know, this is a false sense of security, and that the AI avatars would only be useful if the journalists also had a high level of technical know-how on how to cover their tracks, which is a fair point. I'm hoping that they do, or I'm hoping that they have a friend that can help them out with that. But I think at least, you know, at least they have that sense of security of not having their faces plastered out there to put this news out into the world.
Frank, I have to put it to you because this is the AI argument, right? And every week we come and we sit down and we talk about AI, and when it comes to the real practical, real world use cases, we have doctors being helped to make better decisions. We've got journalists helping to make better journalistic decisions and get the news out there. Those are real world positive things. And then we have the Connor Leahys of the world saying, "Oh well, an Excel spreadsheet's had a password compromised, so who cares?" AI is great. You know, it's we should just be more AI, is what I say, and I hope to bring you along with me.
Before we finish up, I just wanted to mention as well that Venezuela story, I got that through my buddy Jim McLeod's AI newsletter on LinkedIn. So, and it's well worth subscribing to. So you should check it out, and anyone listening should check it out. It's aimed mostly at designers, but I think everyone will find interesting stuff like this story in there.
Brilliant. And who was that again?
Jim McLeod.
Brilliant. Fantastic. All right, Frank, until next week, have a great week, and we'll talk
Have
to
a
you
good
soon.
one. Chat to you later. Cheers, Justin.
See ya. Bye.